Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You know, I've received a lot of requests for gun disarming videos. So you asked for it, you got it. I'm releasing a series on gun disarming. Now, these videos are going to be released in installments, so it's very important to follow them in order. Also, these techniques are unique to my system of self-defense, contemporary fighting arts. They've been taught to civilians, law enforcement, and military. Please also remember to like, subscribe, and share the videos to like-minded people. As always, pay attention and good luck.
Let's talk about training equipment. It's very important to use realistic training equipment. If you use poor pieces of equipment, it could definitely affect your training. When in contemporary fighting arts, we use an actual Crossman pellet gun. It gives us an actual realistic trigger pull, and of course it'll make a sound when you actually press the trigger, and that's what you want, because there's going to be dialogue between you and your training partner, and in the course of this dialogue, you're going to attempt to disarm if you have that luxury in a real situation. But the dialogue is what buys you time, and the dialogue is what you're going to use as a distraction tool to attempt to disarm. So if you're dialoguing back and forth with your training partner, and you have a gun such as this one without an action, without an actual trigger, without any sound, you're not going to know if you clear the line of fire. So this gun, which is very popular in law enforcement agencies, it's got some appreciable weight. It's a Smith & Wesson 9mm, but the problem is it's not a realistic training tool because you don't know if you clear the line of fire. There's no sound, there's no trigger to it. So you do not want to use this type of training tool. Again, the blue gun here, same thing. It's here, Dave, take this one. This blue gun here is used in law enforcement training as well. Again, I think it's costing like $70, $80. No trigger, it does not function. Okay, so there's no action here. But what you want, I think what you want is these pellet guns that actually have hammers that pull back. You can shoot from a double action mode, or you can shoot from a single action mode. So these are good. This is obviously your revolver, and this is your semi-automatic version of it. So Crossman guns you can get just about any sporting goods store. You'll notice there's yellow tape on the actual guns, and the reason why is this, it just indicates in CFA or to our people that it's a training gun, it's not a real gun. You never use ammunition, you never use a pellet or a BB. You should wear eye protection always, because sometimes when you move the actual gun quickly you can hit the eye, so you want to be careful about that. And also you should always have an expert in reality-based self-defense present who could tell you what you're doing right or wrong, because if you're doing something incorrectly and you're reinforcing that bad habit, it'll cost you your life in a gun disarm technique. Remember, gun disarming is used as it's an act of desperation, and generally there's no second chances, so you have to make certain your technique is proper. So we use the pellet gun or the BB gun that actually has a trigger that works. You can use it from a single or a double action mode. We do not want to use we do not want to use the molded guns, even though they have some good weight to them, because the trigger is not operable, it does not function, does not work, and we cannot replicate realistic scenarios. So you can find this generally in sporting goods stores and whatnot. There's also there's also some high-tech stuff out there where you can actually shoot I believe it's a paintball gun. We do not use it because, again, it hurts like a bitch, and second of all, it can take your eye out big time, and it'll make your training hall, your house, your garage, and basement a mess. So we do not use paintball. You don't need to. The guns that we use, the sound that they make, you'll know if you clear the line of fire. But just make sure you stay away from these actual molded handguns, because they're not going to realistically replicate a gunman encounter. Let's talk about redirecting the weapon. First of all, you never parry a gun. A parry is a slap. We don't slap the gun. What we want to do is we want to redirect the weapon. That's the euphemism we use here. And by redirecting the weapon, we're going to move the actual gun itself out of the shot. Simultaneous to that, we move our target out of the line of the shot. So we're moving the actual gun and the target out of the line of the shot. So if Mike holds me up in assault position number 1, let's see, he jams it up here. Again, notice how I have my hands to the height of the gun. What I'm going to do is I'm going to redirect the actual weapon hand. I'm not going to smack the wrist, because if you smack the wrist here, that's not the weapon hand. If I redirect the wrist here, it could flex it in and that shot can go off. But if I actually redirect the hand itself that's holding the gun here, it's a much better control and prevention of the wrist from flexing in. So when you attempt to do a redirection, don't redirect the wrist here. You want to actually redirect the hand, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to redirect the hand this way. Do you follow that? Very, very important. Tim, can they see that pretty decently there? So again, when you redirect, this is just for this particular example. You don't want to redirect the wrist, you redirect the hand. And again, what you're going to do, Mike, jam it up there, what you're going to do is you move that target, which is in this case my head, out of the line of the shot. The catching hand, this is called a catching hand. What the catching hand is going to do, generally it's best if it comes under. So what you're going to do is as you redirect, it comes under and it actually grabs part of the frame or the slide depending on where you grab, and it secures the hold. So the redirection hand places it into the actual catching hand. Now what happens here is for best control, once you have the actual gun grabbed, you should go back and grab the wrist. The reason why is if I put everything on the gun itself, this individual will try to pull it back. And again, if there's blood, if there's oil from the gun, or there's sweat, whatever it is, it'll slide through my hands and then he'll pull the gun out and take the second shot. If the gun doesn't jam, which it could if it's a semi-automatic, generally if it's a semi-automatic. So when I redirect it, I catch it with the catching hand. I usually come under, and then once I'm here, I will take this hand. The redirection hand usually becomes the grab on the wrist. This allows me much more control over the opponent's arm, as opposed to coming here and holding the gun itself. Not to mention, after I neutralize him, if I'm going to turn the gun back on him, I don't have the same kind of leverage I do here as I do this way. So what we want to do is we want to grab the wrist and the actual gun itself. One thing is really important. When you redirect the weapon, make sure that the catching hand is not lined up with that muzzle. And a lot of my students make that mistake is they're not really aware of the catching hand until after the gun is discharged. What happens is they redirect it and that muzzle, the actual projectile shoots out of the muzzle, but their hand is right here, so it actually gets shot. So it's important when you redirect that your hand comes under it. So what you're going to do is, as this hand is being redirected, this one needs to have a brain of its own. This just can't stay here and then function once the redirection occurs. It needs to work in conjunction with this one, and then it comes under and grabs. So I'm just using assault position 1 as an example of the redirection hand. Again, he jams it up there, jam it harder. There's the redirection hand. Notice how I have control. Once I go here, I grab the wrist itself. Now I'm controlling him. Now, do you remember what the next step of it's going to be? I don't disarm the weapon, I neutralize the gunman. So there would be headshots, there would be knee shots. If I have to let go for a second and go for the windpipe, I may do that. I may do a web hand straight to the throat, or I may crush the throat. It all depends on what type of energy the assailant's giving me, how much damage has occurred, what emotional state he's in. There are a lot of different variables and factors. I'm just giving you principles that you can follow that can save your life. So again, you redirect the weapon, you're going to come under with the catching hand, and then you control the wrist and the actual gun itself. Now that we talked about redirecting the weapon and then controlling the weapon, it's important to mention that you need to have grip strength, functional grip strength. Your entire life are in these two hands. So when you're disarming a gun or even a knife for that matter, you need to have a strong grip. And the only way to strengthen your grip is either to get in the gym and work on your wrist curls and your forearms, or in my War Machine 2 DVD I talk about body hangs, how hanging onto the bar will work on your hand strength. I just want to take this moment to tell you, you need to work on having bone-crushing force. You need to have an extremely strong grip, because everything, your life, basically are in your two hands right here. And if for any reason it's weak and he can pull that gun out and realign that shot, it's going to be over for you. So understand, you need to get in the gym, or you need to get the raising putty that we sell on the internet and work your grip strength. There are different types of grips after you redirect it and control it. We have something called a parallel grip. That's when both of your arms run parallel to each other. You can have the hand down and the hand up, we call the overhand and underhand grip. This is still parallel, and this is a parallel grip. This is we call a perpendicular grip. If you're like this or like this, and you're saying to yourself, well, how does that happen? You'll see the disarming, you'll see how sometimes it ends up this way. The perpendicular grip is not the best. The parallel usually gives you the best amount of control. So we have parallel, parallel. This is even a parallel. Having two underhand grips as opposed to two overhand grips. This is not the best position to be. It's the weakest. This is usually the more preferred. And then from parallel, we have the perpendicular, or we have perpendicular. So sometimes you get perpendicular, sometimes you get parallel. You want to shoot for parallel. Also, you never want to use false grips. A false grip is where the thumb does not go under. This is not preferred. He can easily pull down and then you don't have control. So when you go for, say, a parallel grip, you want to use a full grip with those thumbs under. This is going to ensure maximum control of the gunman's hand. So again, one more time, perpendicular, parallel, right? We have overhand and we have underhand. We want the overhand grip, that's the best. So overhand parallel is the ideal. Sometimes you can't choose. You get what you get in a street fight. I've said that since day one. So, but yeah, just be aware of the different type of terminology that we use here at Contemporary Fighting Arts. Something I find very amusing out there is that there are some reality-based instructors who teach gun disarming techniques, yet they're not particularly knowledgeable about the firearm. You need to become familiar with the firearm, particularly if you're going to instruct gun disarming techniques. You need to know about a firearm. You need to understand the nomenclature. You need to know the sequence of fire. You need to know how the firearm discharges the actual projectile or the bullet. There are a lot of instructors who have never shot a gun, they do not own a gun, but yet they're going to teach you gun disarming tactics. It makes no sense at all. I just want to go on the record for saying, as a reality-based self-defense instructor, I'm also an NRA instructor, and I'm certified in home firearm safety, personal protection, and also pistol marksmanship. So this is the homework that I've done before I decide to venture out and teach gun disarm techniques. I've done my homework. So be leery of some of the instructors out there who teach gun disarming. Ask them, are they certified in any type of firearms training? Have they shot a gun? Do they own a handgun? Do they own a long gun, a rifle? And that can help you determine if this person is legitimate or if they really have a strong foundation in gun disarming techniques. So understand this, that if you're going to teach someone how to perform surgery, make certain that that physician has performed an operation. Okay? Same thing with someone who's going to teach you gun disarming. Make certain this person has shot a handgun, owns a handgun, and is certified in firearm training. Very, very important fact. Okay, let's talk about firing sequence. The reason why we're going to talk about this is because it's going to help demystify the firearm. And again, the more you know, the less you're going to fear in a self-defense situation. So if you understand exactly how the bullet comes screaming out of the muzzle, again, it's going to reduce the fear factor because you're going to understand exactly what's going on. First thing that's going to happen is the firing pin is going to actually hit the primer of the projectile, as you can see in this picture. Next thing is the primer is going to actually ignite once that primer is struck. Then the powder is ignited by the primer flame, as you can see right here. Then the burning powder forms gases, and finally the expanding gases propel the actual projectile, which is this. This is the actual bullet. So when you think about it, this part right here, this is not actually a bullet. This is a round or a cartridge. The bullet is actually this projectile that comes screaming out of the muzzle, and this is what you have to avoid getting hit with. So understanding this firing sequence, again, firing pin strikes the primer, primer ignites, powder is ignited by the primer flame, burning powder forms gases, and finally expanding gases propel the projectile. This is the firing sequence, and this is what occurs when the actual gunman squeezes the trigger and that gun goes off.